Night covered all of North Africa with a veil of silence and stars when their feet first touched the land of Morocco for the first time. In the 6th century BCE, after Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Holy Temple in Jerusalem and burned the city to dust, the survivors scattered in every direction, some crossing seas and others walking through endless deserts. Those who moved west eventually reached the Atlas Mountains and encountered Amazigh tribes who did not greet them with hostility but with curiosity and calm. Morocco at that time had no borders, no states, no walls, only the open authority of sky and sand. These early Jewish families settled among Amazigh clans in the Middle and High Atlas in places like Eteshak and the southern mountains, and over time they stopped being strangers and became neighbors. Some Amazigh tribes were even drawn to Judaism and a few fully embraced it, creating a rare fusion of cultures and beliefs that tied these newcomers to the land in ways deeper than simple refuge. They were no longer fugitives from a destroyed temple but people beginning a new chapter in a land that did not yet know how to reject anyone. The 1st century of the Common Era brought another wave of catastrophe when the Romans destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem in the year 70 and forced a far larger Jewish population into exile. This time their movement was not scattered but massive, spreading across North Africa from Egypt to the far western edges of Morocco. With each generation that arrived, Jewish life became more rooted in the soil of the Maghreb until it was as natural there as the rivers and valleys. By the 15th century, Morocco had already become a second homeland for many Jews, so when Spain expelled the Jews of Andalusia in 1492, they did not wander into the unknown but moved toward a place that already felt familiar. The Sephardic Jews arrived carrying the memory of a brilliant civilization, speaking a broken Spanish shaped by exile and bringing refined skills in trade and craftsmanship. They settled in cities like Fez, Marrakesh, Tetuan, and Essaouira and quickly reshaped them, weaving their traditions into the urban life of Morocco as deeply as the old walls and markets. In every Moroccan city, a Jewish quarter known as the Mellah emerged, but it was never just a neighborhood. It was a complete world enclosed within walls yet open in spirit, with its own rabbis, courts, markets, and rhythms of prayer. In 17th century, Fez the Mellah began behind Bab ol-Sarayh, the silent clock gate that marked the entrance to another reality. Inside stood the Ibn Danan synagogue, built by order of Sultan Rashid, who had invited Jews from the Atlas Mountains to revive the city's trade. The synagogue was not only a place of worship but the living heart of the community, decorated with green and white tiles, glowing oil lamps and wooden benches worn smooth by generations. Above, women prayed on a separate floor while below men gathered in quiet devotion. Hidden beneath it was a small underground room where brides were washed in collected rainwater before their wedding, as if every new marriage was meant to begin with a blessing from the sky itself. In the port city of Essaouira, known to Europeans as Mogador, the Mellah was even richer and more famous. Jews there transformed a modest coastal town into a commercial hub linking Morocco to Europe, the Americas, and India. Their homes bore carved Stars of David above the doors and Hebrew inscriptions along the walls, rising in tall layers where shops and workshops filled the lower floors and families lived above them. On Friday nights, music drifted through narrow alleys as balconies overlooked the glowing streets. The Mellah contained major synagogues and beside it a vast Jewish cemetery where rabbis lay buried under stones carved with ancient Hebrew, their teachings once respected far beyond Morocco. Trade, prayer, and memory existed side by side, making the Mellah not just a place to live but a place to belong, where identity was preserved even while cultures mixed freely around it. In the modern era, that memory was given a physical home when the House of Memory was opened in Essaouira in 2020 by King Mohammed VI himself. The building had once belonged to a wealthy Jewish family and contained a small synagogue at its heart, surrounded by carved wood and old artifacts that told the story of Jewish life in the city. After decades of silence following mass emigration, the place was restored by André Azoulay, a Moroccan Jewish advisor to the king who saw it as a compass for a world that had lost its sense of shared history. Inside, visitors walk through every stage of Jewish life in Morocco, from daily rituals and poetry to goldsmithing, tailoring and religious rites. ending with the final prayers said for the dead. Above it all sits a research center dedicated to studying the deep relationship between Islam and Judaism in Morocco, offering proof that coexistence was not a dream but once a lived reality. When more than 90% of Morocco's Jewish population left in the 1950s and 1960s, it was not only a migration but a transformation of identity. Before 1948, nearly 250,000 Jews lived across Moroccan cities and mountain villages, deeply woven into the country's social fabric. The creation of Israel changed everything, pulling some with hope and pushing others with fear, until entire neighborhoods emptied. In their new land, young Moroccan Jews entered the Israeli army as all citizens were required to do, but many of them rose far beyond ordinary service. The discipline learned in the Mellah and the resilience formed by centuries of survival turned into military ambition, and within a few decades Moroccan Jews were present in every branch of the armed forces, from infantry to air power. The army became the place where boys from Fez and Essaouira were remade into Israeli men, carrying old memories beneath new uniforms. Some of those sons of Morocco would later shape the very doctrine of Israel's military power. Gadi Yizenkot, whose family came from Morocco, rose to become Chief of Staff of the Israeli army and oversaw key operations in the West Bank and Lebanon, crafting strategies that would define how wars were fought. He was only one among many. More than 1 million Israelis today trace their roots back to Moroccan streets and mountain villages, and their presence fills the police, the special forces, intelligence units, and command structures. Another figure, Miri Regev, born to a Moroccan and Spanish Jewish family, joined the army in her early 20s, climbed the ranks and became the official spokesperson of the Israeli military before entering politics. The journey from the narrow alleys of the Mellah to the loud podiums of military power was not unusual. It was the story of an entire generation redefining itself in a new state. Yet while so many left, one man chose to stay, carrying within him the echoes of Morocco and the pulse of Jewish memory. André Azoulay was born in Essaouira to an old Amazi Jewish family and grew up among fishing boats, markets, and sea air. Unlike thousands of others, he did not depart for Israel but remained in his homeland, rising through intellect and diplomacy to become one of Morocco's most influential royal advisors. Serving both King Hassan II and King Mohammed VI, he became something more than a political figure, acting as a bridge between Moroccan Muslims and Moroccan Jews abroad. He spoke quietly to Israel when official channels were closed, maintaining threads of dialogue that others feared to touch. In 2023, Israel honored him with its Presidential Medal, recognizing his role in making reconciliation possible and in preparing the ground for an agreement that would later change the region. That agreement came in December 2020 when Morocco and Israel announced the normalization of their relations under the Abraham Accords. To the outside world it seemed sudden, but in truth it was the result of decades of silent communication and shared history. In exchange for Israel's recognition of Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara, Morocco reopened its doors to formal ties. Direct flights began to connect Casablanca and Tel Aviv, carrying tourists, businessmen, and elderly Jews returning to visit the streets their grandparents had once walked. Technology, trade, and security cooperation followed, but behind all of it was something far more emotional, a sense of return and unfinished belonging. In the years that followed, the two countries signed military and intelligence agreements, and by 2026 they were working under a joint defense plan, turning what had once been a hidden relationship into an open alliance. Back in Morocco, the memory of Jewish life never truly disappeared. Every year Jews of Moroccan origin return from Israel, France, and Canada to visit Fez, Marrakesh and Essaouira, searching for old homes and family graves. They knock on doors that have been closed for decades, and Moroccan Muslim families often open them with warmth, music, and celebration, as if no time had passed at all. The land itself seems to remember who once belonged to it. In 2011, Morocco enshrined this truth in its constitution, officially recognizing Moroccan Jewish identity as part of the nation's cultural heritage, a gesture unlike any made by a Muslim country before. Through restored synagogues, royal visits, and cultural projects, Morocco uses its history not as a burden but as a form of diplomacy, sending a message that shared roots can shape modern alliances. In the end, beyond politics and armies, there remains a land that once held Jews and Muslims side by side, a land of mellars and memories, and a story that is still being written.